Okay.
Hello, everybody. This is Gotham City Comics here, and today we are going to interview Sierra, who was the partner of Colin Cantwell for about 24 years, I think she said. And along with us, we have my good friend Ken. He will be joining us, and we're going to show some clips, some videos, and just talk about Colin Cantwell since not that many people have heard of him.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. We had to move back in 2014, and Colin was always kind of secretive about his work. He never really wanted to talk about Star Wars, even though I had known him for like, what, 18 years at that time. And he didn't talk about much of his background. And then when we had to move, we discovered in the basement that he had the original concept art for the Star Wars movie. So that he had created for George Lucas. And Colin was actually the very first employee of the company. He was working on designing the concepts for the ships before George even had a studio to work in. So after he designed the ships, then he created the first models for the Star Wars movie. So uh, you want me to show the clip about the kit bashing?
Sure.
Please, yeah.
Okay. Give me a second here to get it up. So, all right, hang on here. This is your first actual kit bashed machine. Can you see it okay? The
No, I just hear it.
machine. You can? Tell us a little bit
I
about
can
what
only
this
hear it. I can't see it.
Ground superiority machine in my fantasy vision here.
I have to share the screen.
Parts
Okay.
kept putting them together. They kept speaking to me.
There it goes.
And different parts of it
Can you see
made
it?
other parts.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay.
It, as you can see, can travel on threads, has rudders so that it can gain altitude off the ground, and it has combinations of all sorts of plastic model parts from probably 50, maybe even more models. So this is your second masterpiece here. Tell us a little bit about this one. Well, this one is made completely from scratch. All of the components of this were in model drawers, some 200 model drawers, and they were then assembled and glued, and in all of its complexity, it was created to tell the story. For instance, right here is a wealthy philanthropist who donated his fortune to the building of this craft, which is dedicated to achieving world peace by 1860.
Hey.
Oh, I'd like to see the movies those models would be.
Okay. So the story behind the kit bashing is that Colin was pretty much the grandfather of kit bashing. And what he did was take all these different ships apart, all different kinds of toys, trains, planes, cars, whatever he could find. And he would put them, the same types of parts in hundreds of what he called nurney drawers. So in our basement was this about 5 foot tall, maybe 4 foot wide, maybe 3 feet wide, 4 feet probably, square. It was on a roller, so you could turn it around like a turn plate, so you could actually turn the whole thing around, and it had hundreds of drawers in this, and hundreds and hundreds and thousands probably of pieces of these little tiny pieces that he used to build these ships. So kit bashing was coined basically because of Colin. This is where it started years ago, put these ships together. And what's relevant about those two ships is that when his friend Hal Barwood was working on American Graffiti, the movie, he knew Colin, and Hal knew about Colin's work. And so he decided he wanted to introduce Colin to Lucas. So that's how the film got started with Colin, is that Hal Barwood introduced Lucas to Colin, and then Lucas took a look at his kit bashed ships, and he spent quite a bit of time exploring them with a magnifying glass, Colin said. So he would look deep into it, try to figure out all the different angles and what he might think was for shooting. And so that's how the movie got started, with the kit bashing. So,
Wow. And so for years, I thought Ralph McQuarrie was the guy that came up with all that. And now we know. That's amazing. It's maybe I don't know why I didn't ever know that, but that's a thing. I'd never heard the term kit bashing. It's just creating your own model kits from pieces of others.
yeah, exactly. And now with modelers, it's gotten to be a common term, but I doubt that too many people know that Colin was the one that coined it in the first place. So, yes.
It sounds like he was almost like always there at all these key moments in movie history. He developed new film techniques like the beginnings of IMAX. He was there like whispering in Stanley Kubrick's ear during 2001: A Space Odyssey about using classical music. Is that all? I mean, it all sounds so fascinating. I want to know all about his War Games, the movie War Games he worked on, which kind of predicted everything happening now with that you see in the news with the hacking and everything.
No, he was very prolific. You're right. He made a lot of different movies. I think your audio disappeared.
It's fine. I can hear him.
Can you?
Yeah,
I can
I
hear
think I
you,
might
but
have had a little.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I think it
There we
just had
go.
a little glitch.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
sorry. Anyway, it just all sounds fascinating.
No, he was, like I said, he was extremely prolific in his work. He just worked on a lot of films. He's created the first IMAX film. So one of the things he did was the first Millennium Falcon. And so there were a different version of it. And I'll let him tell the story here.
Okay.
Get another video keyed up here.
You mentioned one.
Hang on.
That the Millennium Falcon
hear
had
it?
to be
Yes.
redone. Want to explain what happened and how it started out?
Okay. Well, the long and short of it is that the Millennium Falcon was built in the model shop by with considerable detail, and it was blindsided by another film, another story, and another design idea. So it had many strikes against it.
Well, you mentioned it initially looked something like a lizard style.
Yes, it was.
Totally different than what we have now.
That's right. it was sort of like a mechanical lizard, and it uh, had a stance of its paws or feet and various body parts and things that popped out of the body and so forth. And all that was in one afternoon declared unconstitutional for Star Wars. And that's because there was another project where a very similar ship was invented
By another studio.
by another studio.
Okay.
And therefore, there was a very rapid change happening in Star Wars. And it was mainly by taking any part of the Millennium Falcon that was remotely like a ship part from another film, from this other film.
And you had already built the model at that time, hadn't you?
Yes. Actually, I was quite pleased to have it disappear because there was no quibbling about it. It just had to do it, and it had to be a fresh start. And there was a desktop with the few remaining parts that now had to become a Millennium Falcon.
Okay. Well, that's what happened to the Millennium Falcon. They actually went after they tore it apart, they saved the turret part of it. And you'll see that on the side of the newer version of
Yeah,
the Millennium
I was going to
Falcon.
say that. That's the one part that I recognize.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Was the other movie Silent Running?
No, it was Space 1999.
Oh, the TV show Space 1999. Yeah, okay, of course it does. Yeah, the eagle did look, yeah, had kind of had legs like that, right? Okay. Yeah, Silent
Yes.
Running would have been too early. That was like 71. Okay.
It's a coincidence that they ended up with the same style at the same time, but fortunately they found that out before it went live.
Yeah,
So
Space 1999 would have been just that, come out September of 75, right when they would have been in the early design work. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
yeah. So that's how the Millennium Falcon got torn apart. We were in Mexico City at Comic-Con, and they actually had a full-size, what am I saying, replica of the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. So I have videos of Colin and me going through the Millennium Falcon, and everybody's cheering, and it was great fun. You had a chance to sit down at the control panel and play around with the pseudo control panel. So
And
he had a great time.
he is credited in, is he credited in the credits of Star Wars? Did
Oh,
they have
yeah,
him in the credits?
definitely, yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
He was a, I don't know, technical advisor or something like that, but no, he was definitely credited all the movies he was involved in. But there's a lot of scenes in the movie that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Khan. So one of the next things to talk about is the Death Star, which is the iconic Death Star, and that has its own story. So let me get this one up here. You also designed the Death Star, the iconic Death Star. So why don't you tell us about that, and also the story of how the Death Star got its trench?
When the plastic halves finally came, they were plastic halves. So I knew I could do the kinds of scribing for that. But I found when I wanted to put the plastic halves together, I had each of them beautifully scribed with highly mechanical, evil detail. And I found that the two halves had a flaw. They had the curvature at the equator didn't mesh properly. The plastic styrene had shrunk on each side of the equator, above and below, and that meant that it was going to take very crucial body work to be able to complete saw away and then keep all the detail at the equator. So I had a show-stopping problem. So I decided without being desperate, I better call show-stopping George Lucas. I told him that the Death Star, two halves had come, and that there was a problem. And it was probably the kind of problem that took a crucial decision on his part, that the poor good guys, outgunned and so forth, were going to have to get into a battle with the Death Star, and the Death Star had to have this armored trench with all sorts of weaponry in the trench. And then the guys were going to have to get closer and closer to the equator of the Death Star, and they're going to have to dive into that trench. And the trench was fully armored and all sorts of weaponry in there, and they could be chased into the trench, and then have to dodge as weaponry from all sides was going to be filling the trench with deadly armor and weapons and peril, and to survive was going to be a very difficult story. And then finally, there would have to be a very tiny detail at the end of their quest that would take a tiny projectile and grave accuracy to put the tiny projectile down a tiny hole that was a vulnerable place in the Death Star, and that would have to be how they would succeed.
And what did George say?
George said, "I'll call you back." And 20 minutes later, George called back and said, "It's a go on the trench. Can you do the extra work?" And I said, "For something so important, I can do the extra work."
All right. So that's the story of the Death Star.
So is that a photograph of his original model?
Yes,
That's
That's
cool.
one of the things we actually have for sale. I have quite a few of his original concept art that he signed, and then a number of the model photos that he signed before he passed away in 2022. So that was actually one of the pictures of the model. Yes.
Great. So were any of his models actually used on screen, or?
The Skyhopper, when Luke
Oh,
was playing with the toy in the beginning of the film,
oh yeah, sure.
his model. Yeah.
So the others were using his original designs done by, I guess, John Dykstra's people. Was that how it worked?
Yes, right. The final product was created by another
It's
crew.
also ironic that John Dykstra won an Academy Award for all that effects work. And then in the 90s, they went in and digitally removed everything that won the Academy Award and put in computer generated effects. And so it's like you barely see anything that Dykstra did. It's all been replaced. I kind of don't like that, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, this is all fascinating. And so these were photographs taken in the 70s of his original models that you
Took those
found.
models after he made them. Those are his own photographs, yes.
Okay.
And you can see the Death Star sitting on a table.
So how
So
big are these prints that you're selling? Are they like poster size?
no, we've got different sizes. The concept art is a 12 by 8, 8 by 12 print, the small ones, and then the big ones are 12 by 18. And then, yeah, the model photos are 8 by 10, and the big ones are 12 by 18. So, yeah, we're
There's so many
selling.
people, so
Hmm?
many people have these Star Wars collections. They would need, it seems like, one of those in every one of these Star Wars rooms that all these guys have. They're amazing. Yeah, his artwork's great. And what other films did he work on over the years?
We worked on, okay, the long story. A lot of them, actually. Some of them are not even as well known. 2001 Space Odyssey. He sat behind Kubrick on that one, and not behind Kubrick. He used to have turkey sandwiches with Kubrick at nighttime, and he worked on the space scenes. They brought him in late on that movie. So he was working on the space scenes on that movie. And then Kubrick wanted to do a documentary kind of a beginning where people were all sitting around the table talking. And Colin talked him out of that and then created the dramatic sun, moon, and earth beginning. And then also suggested they also sprock Zarathustra music, that the da 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 da, which I'm terrible at. But anyhow, you get the
Yeah.
idea. That was Colin's idea.
Which is
So that
what
was
the movie
one.
is most remembered for, is that opening and that music. That's the most remembered thing about the movie.
And
That's
use
great.
theme song today all the time and advertising and every other which thing. So you could attribute that to Colin, his original work.
Yeah, so it's like all the big touchstone moments of, like, because when my older brother saw Star Wars in the summer of 77, he went out on a date with his girlfriend and saw it. And then he came back to me, the 12-year-old, and said the special effects are better than 2001: A Space Odyssey, because that was
Well,
the pinnacle. And then Star Wars came along, and it's like, so he worked on both. That's
yes, he
incredible.
did. He was instrumental on both of those movies. The opening scene with the Death Destroyer coming over, that was a lot of Colin. There's a whole story about that too. So
And and he worked with Walter Cronkite during the moon landing, is that right?
okay, so Colin worked with NASA.
Oh, okay.
He started out his career actually working, well, it's another whole story, but Colin started out his career working with NASA. And so NASA, JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, actually hired him to work with Walter Cronkite. And the difference between Colin and everybody else is that everybody had these flight manuals. We had several copies of the original flight manuals for the mission. But with Colin, he knew what they were supposed to be saying, not just what was written in the book. And so the other two stations were going exactly by the actual flight manual. And Walter's sitting in front of Colin and broadcasting live. And so Colin is listening to a comm line between the astronauts and NASA. And he didn't think they had landed because they weren't saying the right words. The dialogue was wrong. And the other two stations were going exactly by what the flight plan was supposed to be. So Colin's telling Walter, I don't think this is happening right now. I think they're late and they haven't landed yet. And the other two stations going by the flight plan said, yes, they have landed. And the station manager's yelling in Colin's ear, you're never going to work again the rest of your life. And turns out Colin is right because they didn't land in the right place. He was listening to 30 seconds and 15 seconds. And this is how much fuel they had before they couldn't get back up again if they had landed or hadn't landed when they did. They couldn't have gotten off the moon. So anyhow, Colin's right. So the station manager is saying, we won, we won, we won.
Man,
Among
they're
other things, he created the first IMAX movie in California, IMAX theater, the Fleet Theater. And designed, he was directed, designed, and the whole thing. The journey to the outer planets. And worked on different projects for NASA.
So he was one of the pioneers or the pioneer of IMAX technology.
Oh yeah, that was the first IMAX theater. He was the pioneer.
Was there did he work with Douglas Trumbull on that, or?
I don't know if he worked with Doug Trumbull on that, but he did work with Doug on different projects. I know that for sure.
I know he was doing something called Show Scan, Douglas Trumbull, that wasn't exactly IMAX, but both of those guys knew each other, and they were working on the next generation of film exhibition. That's great, man. You say that there might be a movie made based on his life. That would be incredible.
I'll talk to you about the TSJ Foundation in a minute here. Got a couple more clips to show if you want to see them.
Oh, sure. Sorry. No, hijack things.
So no, that's what this is all
It's
about.
like I grew up not ever knowing about Nikola Tesla. It's like all of a sudden, then everyone discovered him, and it's like he strikes me the same way. It's like, how do we not know more about such an incredible life? It's great that this is coming out now. He's getting his.
It's unusual. A lot of people, they work on a movie or two, and that's their life, is working on movies. Colin created the first multicolored monitor for Hewlett Packard, from a few colors to 5,000 colors. He created a stop action motion picture camera for Buck Rogers movie. Just it goes on and on. He was, a creative genius, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play. Actually, we're almost out of time here, so I'm going to actually play that last clip with the TSJ Foundation. But this is what's really exciting about it. The TSJ Foundation is a nonprofit organization. And what they're doing is taking Colin's work and breaking it up into different parts. And they want to use all these different aspects of what he did, all of his different projects, and use them as an inspiration for young people to get involved in STEAM programs, the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So I'm really excited about that because that is a good use of Colin and all the years he put all this work together, and his legacy is now it's going to go for something that's going to be for the future, not just for his work at that time. But let me show you what this is all about here.
Sure. It's like he's the very embodiment of STEAM. His whole life was all of that.
That's exactly why they're interested in what Colin was doing. Exactly right.
Art and science together.
Yes. Art, science. He took engineering in college. Yes, there's so much to talk about, Colin. I could go on forever.
Yeah. In the schools, it's the STEAM programs usually run by the art teachers and science teachers kind of working together. So it's what I've seen.
So hang on here. Get this thing started. I think I did this wrong. Hang on. This thing here. You see it now?
I'm Sarah Dahl,
Yes.
Colin Cantwell's partner of 24 years. There's exciting news for Colin's legacy. Eric Jacobs of the TSJ Foundation contacted me and told me that he wanted
Happened there. Sorry about that.
Ohio. Let's see. Eric Jacobs of the TSJ Foundation contacted me and told me that he wanted to create traveling museum exhibits. The purpose is to encourage youth to become interested in STEAM. That's science and technology, engineering, art, and math. Then he invited me to see what they were doing at a Star Wars celebration at the COSI Museum in Columbus, Ohio. In addition to the entertainment, they had multiple posters and displays featuring various aspects of Colin's projects. This includes Star Wars, NASA, and many others. They also created a hologram of the TIE fighter. One of the main attractions, it was an almost life-size model of the TIE fighter cockpit. There were also robots roaming the floor to show young people that they too could create some of these projects if they got involved with STEAM. Scanning device in your hands. That's amazing. Yes, I have one. Since Colin has such a diverse range of expertise, Eric explained to me that their future plans were to build out museum displays and conduct classes with each of Colin's projects, highlighting various aspects of either science, technology, engineering, art, or math. You can help support the TSJ Foundation and Colin's legacy. By purchasing any of Colin's remaining prints, we will donate 1% to the TSJ Foundation in Colin's memory. Colin would have been so proud that his body of work was being featured to further programs for youth.
Okay, and also if you enter the program code Gotham, then anybody can get a 15% discount off of the print. So we'll be donating part of it to the TSJ Foundation, but also your customers can have a discount on the prints.
Oh, thank you for doing that.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I still have my print that you guys gave me 7 years ago when you guys came out
Oh,
to the
really?
store. I got the X-Wing one.
Oh, okay, cool. The concept art, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we have pictures of the models now too, the X-Wing, the TIE Fighter, the Millennium Falcon, the Star Destroyer. And did you know that they actually named a ship after Colin?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was at ILM a few years ago. Colin and I were and talked to the guys there, and they pretty much held Colin up as a gold standard for creativity. And they said, gosh, we should do something with some of his older designs. And so all of a sudden in 22, they come up with the Arrestor Cruiser Cantwell class. So that's what it is. They named it. It's on the Andor television program. So it's
Oh,
actually
okay.
after Colin. They did it as a homage to Colin.
That's pretty neat.
So anyhow, that's pretty much it. Anybody that's interested, again, can buy some prints on colincantwell.com. And just make sure you put in the promo code, rummage around, take a look and see what you got. Promo code is Gotham, Gotham. Nicholas, do you have any questions? Comments?
His mic is muted if he's asking something. We can't hear him.
Yeah.
You can type it in the chat, or you can unmute your mic if you want to say it directly. There's a little button right next to your name. There's a red slash through the microphone. If you push that, I think it unmutes it.
Let's see here.
Can you hear
There
me
he
now?
goes. I think he got it.
I might be able to mute him here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was any routines or, for lack of a better word, like a ritual that he used when he was about to create something new.
Interesting question. Never had that one asked before. I don't think there was a routine. I think he just spent a lot of time thinking about things. I know when it came to designing the X-Wing, he said he just spent 3 days just doing pretty much nothing but just letting things happen. I think he let his imagination kind of take its own life, a life of its own, instead of trying to force it out. And all of a sudden, the idea of people throwing darts in an English pub came to him, and that's how the X-Wing got started. That was where the idea originally came from. And then with the opening up of the wings, he was thinking about a kite opening. So
That's fascinating. So natural settings and just things that he saw in a natural way. He was able, with his imagination, to translate into, something new and something magical. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, Colin, well, the one thing he was really good at is he could see a problem. He could see there was some kind of a problem, and then he was very good at coming up with a solution to the problem and then presenting that to whoever. So, yeah, that's how he got a lot of his jobs. He would find something that they needed and he'd come up with a solution to it. And then he'd present the solution to whoever he needed to talk to. And then they could see that he really knew what he was doing, and that's how he got the work. Any
Great.
more
He
thoughts?
created the answers for them. That's nice.
He did, yes. And I think that's really worth a lot of people understanding if they want a particular job. He went after what he wanted. Colin did what he wanted with his life. He lived the life he wanted to live. He didn't get involved in things he didn't want to get involved in. He turned down Lucas to start ILM. That's one thing. Lucas wanted him to start the ILM program, and Colin didn't want to get involved as a manager or a business owner. He wanted to be a creator, so he turned him down.
Hmm.
Pretty much picked and choose what he wanted to do. So there's lots and lots of Colin stories. So anybody, any more questions? Are we good? Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me. I hope this helped.
Oh,
Yeah,
And
thank you for doing what you do, and
thank you.
I want to do this again if you're up for it, and I want to go over more because I don't think a half hour is even close to enough time.
no, I had, like I said, 26 different videos of Colin's work, so, and all different kinds of topics. So yes, and I've learned a little bit more about how many you can run in an hour and still have a conversation or a half hour. So,
And I really
okay.
hope this movie gets made.
Well, I hope so too. We're working on it. It's something that's proposed. It's not happening yet, but it would be great. I think it'd be an interesting story. Colin's certainly worthy of a movie.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, Kevin, for
Uh-huh.
letting me.
Anytime you guys want to come back on, we can do it again.
Okay, we'll be in touch.
All right,
Okay,
sounds
thank you.
great. Bye.
Take
All right.
care.
Thanks.